Every Wednesday, Tobago Talks, and when Tobago Talk, we listen. We always start the second hour on a Wednesday with commentary from Tobago. We welcome, as per usual, Martin George. We thank Martin for coming in. Let me probably say Martin Claus this morning, because clearly, Martin, it's without a doubt, there's no denying that you are a Christmas man. We could tell. So let me say compliments of the season and best wishes.
Yes, thank you, Jason. I hope that yourself and Trinidad and Tobago will pardon the interruption, but my four little friends insisted on being part of the interview. So if you can facilitate them,
all are welcomed. All are welcomed. We are definitely in the mood and in the season. Of course, with your hat as chairman of the Tobago Business Chamber, we're hearing from different chamber leaders. They were on the program with me. People are saying, well, at least San Juan and other areas, sales are a bit slow. We're hoping that there might be that last-minute rush here in Trinidad. What's the current climate and financial situation and business climate like in Tobago for the season?
Well, Jason, I think it's the same or possibly even worse, because the fact of the matter is you have had several members of the THA who would have been workers who would have finished their contracts, several years ago, who are waiting on their gratuity payments. They were promised these payments by the new administration. It's 2 years into the new administration, and most of these workers have not gotten their gratuity payments. Several workers are owed back pay also. They have not gotten that. And then, of course, there is the looming fear of the upcoming property tax. There's a looming fear of the increases in TNTech and WASA rates. And of course, you add to all of that the increasing fear of crime and criminality, because I understand that there was a double murder last night in Bonaccord in Tobago. So with all these factors, it is not surprising that there is less buoyancy in the market out there in terms of persons wanting to go out and spend and feeling that spirit of cheer and goodwill and bonhomie. So that's why I decided to try and lift people's spirits. I decided, notwithstanding all the doom and gloom, I will still allow my little friends to come and help brighten things up. And, despite the dark clouds, to always look for the silver lining. But it is definitely a scenario that does not look particularly good from a business perspective.
Indeed, and in that regard, I want to ask you about investor confidence, because last year Tobago recorded 10 murders, with the double murder this morning. Last night into the early hours of this morning, it's now pushed to 13 because there was clearly a domestic scenario also resulting in the death of a woman. Again, very unfortunate circumstance. Yes. So it's now at 13. It's a record for Tobago in calendar year 2023. Does this impact investor confidence?
Well, I mean, of course it would, Jason, because persons want to know that they are coming to or investing in a safe climate. You look at places like, for instance, Jamaica, what they have done with Montego Bay. They have managed to carve out a relatively safe space. I mean, it's not perfect, but a relatively safe space there in Montego Bay. So despite all the murders and the crime and the mayhem that occurs in Jamaica, they're able to tell the visitor, hey, listen, you can come here, you can feel safe. If you want to invest in, building a villa or building townhouses or building a small guest house, this is a safe place for you to do so, because nobody wants to go and pick up their monies, their millions of dollars, and go and plunk it into a war-torn or an unsafe scenario. And that is part of what you always consider when you look at these things. You think even in terms of, Mexico, you think of areas like Punta Cana and, Playa del Carmen and, all those lovely areas where, we always go as, Cozumel and stuff like that. And you feel so safe and, you have so much fun and enjoyable. But who's going to venture down into Mexico City? If you understand me, Mexico City is like the murder and kidnapping capital of the world, right? So they've managed to create these safe spaces. What we have repeatedly asked for is for the TTPS to try to create Tobago as our safe space in TNT. In other words, locals and visitors, foreigners, everybody must be able to say, okay, regardless of what the murder statistics in Trinidad are like, we can go to Tobago and feel relatively safe and secure. And I'm not sure that we are necessarily getting that feeling given these increasing numbers. I will say, however, that ACP Collis Hazel has been reaching out to the business community and other stakeholders. He's been reaching across the aisle. He's been trying to work with us. He's been very open and, approachable in terms of policies and strategies to try and improve things. But clearly, there's a whole lot more work that needs to be done when one looks at the year-end statistics in terms of the murder count in Tobago.
And of course, ACP Hazel is also from the Sister Isle, so I know he will have an intimate understanding of the culture, the fabric, the way the space operates. So we wish ACP Hazel the best going into calendar year 2024. Let me ask you, do you think it's going to be a last minute? Yes, you said that it's a bit dismal right now, but traditionally, Trinidad is always known to be a bit last minute. People tend to kind of wait the last 2 days, sometimes Christmas Eve, before they go out. Is that the same culture, the same style in Tobago when it comes to the shopping?
Well, I think Tobagonians tend to be a little bit more circumspect in that regard. So if it is that some of the back pay payments were to come in, or some of the gratuity payments were to come in at the last minute, I think they would then be cautiously optimistic to say, well, look, yes, I have a little kakaday put aside now, so therefore I could buy the new curtains, I could buy the new washing machine, oh boy, I think we lost someone.
So you don't have three friends. It's all good.
Yes, yes. He was tired. He fell asleep. Yes, but the thing is, if those payments do come in by some miracle, then of course you would see that. But without that, I think Tobagonians are basically going to keep their powder dry and say, look, let's hold and wait and see what the new year brings.
That's right. As we look towards 2024, obviously I'll give you a chance to extend Christmas greetings, New Year's greetings to, of course, Trinidad and indeed Tobago. But what's your hope? What's your expectation going into calendar year 2024, especially on the business front? I know obviously it's cruise ship season, so that still very much gives an option. There is possibility in that regard. But what's your hope and anticipation for Tobago on the business front for calendar year 2024?
All right, so my hope is that we would see more leadership, governance, and direction from the leaders in the THA, starting with the Chief Secretary, in the sense that when they were campaigning to get into office, one of their main campaign plans was that they were saying that, look, the current regime was giving lots of big contracts to Trinidadian contractors, and Tobagonian contractors were not getting an opportunity. And what we have seen now, the reality is that they have continued basically the same type of pattern. So one asks oneself, how is it that the Tobago contractor is supposed to build, grow, develop? How is there supposed to be that knowledge exchange, that transfer of information? How are you supposed to ever grow from a small contractor to become a medium size, to become a semi-large, to then become a large contractor if it is that you are not given the opportunity? We of the Tobago Business Chamber have suggested that one of the ways that this can be done, because we recognize, of course, there may be some contracts that may be beyond the capacity, the scale, the capability of, a small Tobago contractor. But what we've said is that you must now insist that whoever is the main contractor, that they must partner maybe up to 25% with a Tobago contractor who can now come on board and learn the skill set, learn the art and craft of, how you manage a big contract. So therefore, that knowledge exchange is going to be beneficial. So it's not just a question of getting the money from the contract. I always try to see the bigger picture, because if it is that you basically teach a man how to fish, then you don't have to give him a fish every day,
It's
because
true.
he now knows how to do that for himself.
Well, Martin, in the minute that remains here before we wrap things up, I'll give you the chance to extend Christmas greetings to the nation. Go right ahead.
Yes, sure. Thanks a lot, Jason. For Trinidad and Tobago, I want us to, hearken back to times gone by where we were a loving, caring, considerate people, where we would have been looking out for one another. We would be sharing with one another. It's not a question of, well, you have plenty and the other person doesn't have. No, you'd all share together. You'd ensure that, look, no one gets left behind. I think we have, become in some way, Jason, in a scenario where life has become short, sharp, and brutish here in Trinidad and Tobago. As the English writer, wrote so many years ago. And we need to reverse that trend and start being a more considerate, compassionate, and gentle people, So no matter how difficult times are, no matter how, hard things are, we as Trinbagonians know that, look, we can rally together, we can band together, and we can find our way out of this crisis. But of course, this depends upon leadership also. And I'm saying leadership both from the THA and from central government. We need our leaders to show that type of gravitas and acumen to be able to lead us like how the Israelites were led out of the desert after 40 years of wandering around in the wilderness. And eventually they were led to the promised land.
Martin George, thank you so much to you and your Christmas friends. Always a pleasure, and we will touch base, I'm sure, early in 2024.
It's always a pleasure, and the very best to you and your entire team at CNC3, Jason. I always like to give credit to all those who work behind the scenes, the persons who the public would not see normally. Your videographers, your script writers, your editors, all the persons who pull this together to make this, a wonderful show. And of course, to you as the main star of the show, Jason, keep up the good work and all the best for 2024.
Thank you so much. The chairman there of the Tobago Chamber, touching base with us, Tobago Business Chamber, Martin George. Always a great, great pleasure and honor to interact with Martin, a regular on the program. Let's take the pause. We come back with your birthday shouts.